All right, guys, tonight we're going to be doing the install of the Hummingbird Helix 5 fish finder on my brand new Old Town Sportsman PDL 120 Pro. This is the brand new platform that Old Town just recently came out with, actually, not too long ago. And I was able to get my hands on one of these thanks to the guys over at NAVARRE Kayak Fishing, who are a local Old Town dealer right here in northwestern Florida. Very professional, very good guys. They were able to get me this kayak a lot faster and a lot more efficiently than any of the other online retailers that I checked before placing my order too. So if you guys are interested in picking up a new Old Town kayak or Old Town accessories made right here in northwestern Florida, just like this grab handle that I have here on the front of mine, y'all check out NAVARRE Kayak Fishing. Their info will be in the description of this video. Now, because this is a brand new platform, of course, there's going to be a lot of interest in this. People want to see all the different features of it, and they want to see it in action before they drop their hard-earned money on it. And I get that. I totally get that. So here soon, I have plans to do all kinds of content specifically related to this boat. I'm going to show you guys all the ins and outs, and of course, I'm going to show you guys actually using this out there on the water fishing. But the one thing that I do just want to say about this before we get into this video, and this is a bold statement, but I would venture to say that this is probably the best platform that I think Old Town has ever released. If you guys are unfamiliar with what the 120 Pro is, essentially what Old Town has created here is they've taken all of the things that customers of what we'll call the 120 Classic have been saying for years and years that they want out of a new kayak, and they've taken all of those things and they've compiled them into this brand new platform and called it the 120 Pro. And potentially one of the biggest things that they have done to this platform is they have made it incredibly easy to add your electronics. As I'm sure most of you guys know, everything nowadays is going towards electronics. All these guys are wanting to put trolling motors and lights and fish finders and live scope and all kind of stuff on these fishing kayaks. And up until this point on the Old Town platforms, if you wanted to run wiring for a fish finder or for a trolling motor or anything like that, you had to drill into the hole to get access to run those wires through. But now we don't have to. One of the biggest things that Old Town has upgraded on this new platform is the addition of these watertight through hole wiring ports that allow us to run wiring for fish finders, trolling motors, lights, and whatever else you could possibly think of without having to drill into the hull of the kayak. It's absolutely amazing, and having those factory through hole wiring ports is going to make the installation of a fish finder on this boat probably one of the easiest kayaks out there to do it on. So we've got one of those through hole wiring ports on both sides of the cockpit interior directly under these massively oversized gear tracks where your fish finder is going to be mounted. So this makes it incredibly easy to run your wiring from the fish finder directly into the hole right below where that fish finder is mounted up. So that's awesome. You can run it on either side. Mine's going to be on the right, but if you're a lefty, yeah, you're wrong, but you can put it on the left side. That's fine. And of course, we've got one up on the bow. We've got one on the stern too if you're running your trolling motor or your lights or whatever. But in my opinion, the biggest one that they've added, the one I'm most excited about, is this one right here. They've actually added a through hole wiring port right above where the dedicated transducer scupper is, so you can run the wiring from that transducer straight up and into your hole right here. And this is a beautiful spot for it. You wouldn't want to have it up here something on this flat surface where all that wash is going to be coming over the deck and running down into a hole that's potentially there. Having it on this slanted surface where there's going to be no pooling water, this is like the ideal spot to have that. So Old Town really thought that through. This is going to make life so easy for us. And the lighting's not going to be too great here this evening, but if we come on the underside of the hole here, you can also see that on the 120 Pro we've got the dedicated transducer mount right here. So there's absolutely no drilling, no hot gluing, or any of that stuff that we've had to do in the past on these kayaks. We've got dedicated spot for the transducer, dedicated spots for all the wiring, and a massive gear track on either side of the kayak to mount that fish finder. All right, so here's a close-up look of that transducer mounting plate for you guys on the underside of the kayak. I love how they designed this. You can see that it's up in this cutout inside the hole. So the hole is shaped almost with like two outer pontoons, and the whole center is this cutaway. So that transducer is going to sit up in here nice and protected. And they've also added a skid plate in front of it that is removable and replaceable, which is super cool. So you can protect that transducer and have a nice secure mounting point for it straight from the factory with no BS. So we've got two little screws that we're just going to take out and lose in the grass apparently. So this is your mounting plate. Give you guys a little close up here, and the way that these come from the factory is awesome. You can see that they're pre-drilled with holes that are going to fit the dimensions of a lot of your mainstream transducers, so they should just mount directly up to this. But if they don't, if you have a different transducer that this is not set up to, you can just drill new holes in this plate without having to do anything to the kayak. And if you mess this up, you can just buy a new $couple plate. The particular transducer that I have that came with my fish finder unit, this is the down imaging version of the fish finder. So this is what that transducer for the Hummingbirds is going to look like. On the older Old Towns, like the Predator that I have, if you look at the bottom side directly underneath where that transducer scupper is, they actually had a cutout in the exact shape of this exact transducer because Old Town and Hummingbird are actually both owned by Johnson Outdoors, which is the same company. So Old Town was fitting their holes specifically for these transducers, which was awesome. But if you had a different transducer from like a different company, like Lawrence or something, it didn't directly fit in there, and it was a huge pain in the ass. Now what Old Town has done is they have created these mounts that you can mount the transducer with that specifically integrate into the bottom of their holes. But if you happen to have something other than a Hummingbird, that's the beauty of this transducer mount that they've now put on the bottom of these boats, is you can just drill new holes in this and you can put whatever brand transducer, whatever type transducer you want on these mounting plates. But these Hummingbird units come with a bunch of different bags of all kind of different kinds of hardware, so any application, whether it's a kayak or a boat or whatever your case is, you've got the stuff you need to mount it up. In this case, we're going to use the transducer mount that they sent with the transducer directly from Hummingbird, and because Old Town and Hummingbird are the same company, you guys can see this is the plate from the bottom of the kayak, this is the plate from the transducer, and those holes are going to line up perfectly. So they're molded to fit each other without any modification. So we've got these two little discs that come in the hardware. You just got to put those on there to kind of space it out, and then what we can do is we can take our mount, lock it into place right there. Then we've got the stainless steel bolt and a lock nut, so that bolt is just going to come right through here, and you guys can see that they have the indent of the nut on this side, which is awesome because we can just get that started, push it in there, and then we can just take an Allen wrench and thread that bolt directly onto it. And they actually even include an Allen wrench for us with these Hummingbird kits. So get that tightened in there a little bit, and then before we tighten it down, I'm just going to come in here and make an adjustment. We can always adjust this later, but I want this to sit parallel with the bottom of the hole so it's looking straight down through the water column. So once I've got those little teeth locked into place there, I can then just go ahead and we'll tighten this down for now. So we're just going to take two of these bolts. These are fairly short bolts, or maybe like an inch. We're going to stick these through the back. You want to do them this direction because if you put them through the other way, the end of the bolt is going to be pushing into the plastic on your kayak, and this isn't going to seat all the way down. So go through from the back side of the plate just like that. And now we're going to take the plate from the Hummingbird unit, and this is going to go right on here. And then we're going to put those two nuts on and tighten them down. And I want to show you guys the inside of this. So the way that this works, this is actually really cool. So this is a quick release. So once you have this plate mounted up to the bottom of the kayak, you got these two little tabs that come into the back of this, just like that. And then you can then lock this down into position. And that's going to allow you to remove this quickly if you want without having to take these bolts off. But if you put those bolts through the way that I showed you guys, and then once we have the nuts on here, they've actually got these deep cutouts in the back of this. So once you lock this down into position, those bolts have a place to go. So that's going to be a 3/8 on the nut side, and then a Phillips on the bolt side. All right, and before we get those tightened down all the way, we're going to lock the tabs into the quick release for the transducer. And then the way that this is designed is you can swing this open before you click it into place, and that's going to allow you access to get your tool in here on these nuts. So super smart. All right, and then once we've got everything all tightened down comfortably, we can simply pop the tabs from that quick release into the tabs or into the little slots on the mounting bracket. So now we've got the mounting plate for the Hummingbird transducer mounted to the plate that comes off the bottom of the Old Town kayak. All right, there we go. Now next step here, we're going to take the cable from the transducer and we're going to route it up through that dedicated transducer scupper that Old Town was so gracious to include for us. So we're going to start by removing the through hole port here. All right, so if you guys take a look at the plug here, this is the little rubber insert that goes inside that through hole wiring plug. This is the side that was facing out on the kayak, but if you flip it over, you can see that they already have included several different sizes for your different gauges of wire, ranging from your large gauges like trolling motor wire all the way down to your Fishfinder sizes. So all you have to do is figure out which one of these holes is going to match up to the specific cable that you're going to be running through it. You can just take a little X-Acto knife or a razor knife and just find where that hole is and just very carefully trim it out. All right, there we go. Clean it up a little bit. I'm just gonna leave some of that extra rubber around the edges because that's gonna just further help seal around that cable once we push it through. Now, if you're running cable like for a trolling motor and you don't have any connectors or anything on the end of it, that's great. You can push it right through that hole. But what happens if you have a plug that you need to push through here? Obviously, that's not gonna work. So in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to cut a slit from the hole out the side that's going to allow us to run that cable through it and then seal it back around the cable. Okay, so now I've got a little slit right there, so I can slip that cable right through, and then that's gonna seal up back around the cable. And then once we put this back on, that's gonna hold everything together and keep that nice and sealed around your cable and keep that pretty water resistant. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our transducer cable and route it into the hole of the kayak. Before you do that though, you need to take that plastic ring for the through hole wiring port and put it onto the wire. And now you can go ahead and just pull that cable all the way through. And then behind the plate here, we're gonna go ahead and take that rubber gasket. We've got that little slit cut in it with our hole cut out, so we can slide that cable in there through that slit until it locks into place in its little hole. And then all we have to do is we can take that plug, push it back into the kayak, get the holes lined up, and then when we put our plate back on, that is just gonna seal everything right back into its beautiful position. So now all we have to do is we can come in here and pull all of that slack out of the line to where that's nice and tight, running through its little connector right there. And that's gonna be pretty dang water resistant. I'm not gonna say waterproof. I'm sure a little bit can probably seep in through that hole, but that's gonna make a pretty dang good gasket. A lot better than just drilling a hole through this like we had to do in the past. Now we've got one on this side over here we're gonna remove. I'm gonna mount my Fishfinder over here on my right-hand side because that's where I like it. If you want to do it on your left side, of course, you've got one of these over there as well. This is probably the most user-friendly and most customizable kayak I've ever seen. All right, now I'm gonna show you guys a trick for those of you that have never done any kind of electrical work. So on this kayak specifically, it's gonna be real difficult to reach your arm all the way down the inside to feed that cable through here, since you have the rod tubes that lay horizontal. So get yourself one of these. This is a fiberglass wire running kit. These are what electricians use to run wires at the insides of like drywall and stuff. I used to run security camera cables, which is why I have these. These are awesome if you're getting into kayak fishing and you're planning to route trolling motor wire, lights, fish finder wire through the inside of your hole. These are gonna come in clutch. I've used wooden dowels before. You can use a coat hanger bent open, it doesn't really matter. But the fiberglass, the reason that these are awesome is because they're flexible, so you can flex them all the way down the inside of your hole if you need to. These just come out, and we're gonna get a couple of these. These particular ones are about 1.5 feet long. We just got various segments here, and they just screw together depending on the length that you need. That should be plenty long there. And then all you have to do is get yourself a little bit of electrical tape, and you're gonna want to tape the end of your wire to it. I'm gonna leave a little bit of the wire sticking out just so I have something to grab a hold of and pull it through. You don't need to tape it up too tight, but just get a couple wraps on there so it's secure to the wire running kit. And then what we can do is we can come in and feed this all the way back. And what I'm doing, you guys can't, there's no good way to show you unfortunately, but I'm using my hand and I'm angling that fiberglass rod upwards and just pushing it down the side of the kayak. And I'm gonna stick my finger in here until I feel it, which I do right here. Kind of got it through. There we go. And pull that wire through. And this is why I don't tape it too tight, because I want to be able to pull that wire through the tape, and then I can just reach back in here. I can pull this back through far enough to where I've got the end of it and can just undo the tape. So I'm gonna give you guys a little pro tip here. Ask me how I know. While I'm working on this, I'm gonna put a little knot in it, and that way it can't go back through there. We've got our plate, and then I can just slide the wire into that little slit until it falls into its hole. And then this is gonna be obviously the same procedure we just did up front. And we will come through and snug our 3 bolts back down. This is just fantastic. Take our little knot out, and that is just beautiful. So now what I can even do if I'm out fishing without the fish finder on, or I just want to clean this up a little bit, is I can actually push that cable all the way in until the end is just barely hanging out like that. It's completely out of my way. And then when I want to put the fish finder on, I can just pull this out just enough to where I need it. And this is going to keep it all sealed up real nice and watertight. So what I'm going to do now that we got that all squared away is I'm going to just bundle this wire up and get that all wound up nice and tight so we don't have wires just everywhere inside the hole. I'm going to take a zip tie, and I'm first going to lock this into place here before it unravels itself. Okay, now on this kayak, this is awesome because it's got these horizontal rod tubes. So I'm just gonna take a zip tie, run it right through here, and I'm just gonna zip tie our little wire bundle to one of those, get it nice and tight, and then we can just slide that all the way back, hidden up underneath there. That way, if I wanna put something in here, it's not in my way. And it's all bundled up real nice. We don't have anything moving around inside there. All right, so now this is where it's really gonna vary by whatever kind of fish finder you're doing and how you wanna set it up. I'm gonna show you guys what I think is easiest for me. So it's gonna start with 2 of these little T-bolts. They've got these insanely long gear tracks. I think they said these are 36 inches each, and there's 1 on each side on the front of the kayak, and there's 2 more on the back. So you've got endless customization opportunities. And they've even got this little cutout right here to allow you to drop T-nuts in the middle of the gear track. So we're gonna drop 2 of these in, and then this is what I've got set up for my Fishfinder here. So this just has these little nuts, and there's our completed Fishfinder setup mounted on the kayak there. So let me take a few minutes. I want to go through what all this stuff is with you guys. I've been running this setup on the Predator for the past several months, and in my opinion, this is probably one of the most convenient and best ways to rig up a Fishfinder on a fishing kayak. So this is the YAKIN cell block is what this base is called, and essentially this is a battery box that mounts directly to your gear track on your kayak. So you saw that I've just got these 2 bolts on either side that's going to lock this down nice and secure to that gear track. They make this super adjustable, so you can have it centered, you can have it offset like I do, that way I don't have it hanging off into the kayak. They've got these beautiful little T-shaped brackets on the outside for your wire management, so my power cable is all wrapped up in there so I don't have cables everywhere. And on the inside here, this is kind of where the magic happens. So if we pull this little sliding door off, that's my battery inside there. So that's just the standard lead acid 7 amp hour deep cycle battery. It's nothing fancy. It's not even lithium. I think that the cell block, they say, can fit up to a 10 amp hour, if I remember correctly. I've got my power cable for the Fishfinder, the little connectors connected to the battery, and then the door's got this tab on the top that slides into this little pocket in there that kind of locks that into place. So your battery is nice and secure inside there, mounted to your gear track, so it eliminates having to wire the battery anywhere inside the hull. Although on the Old Town Sportsman 120 Pro here, they do have this little hatchback here that does have a tray where you can put that battery, and that is kind of like the remnants of the EPDL version of this kayak. But if you really wanted to, you could utilize the through-hole wiring ports that they've included on this kayak to put your battery internal inside the hull. But I really like this cell block option because, as you guys can see, I've got a YAKIN gear track mounted up on top here that I've got my Fishfinder mounted to. So the Fishfinder head unit and the battery and the power cable are all one unit that I can easily remove from the gear track with just those 2 bolts. So when we're getting ready to go out and I'm setting my kayak up for the day, all I have to do is I have to set this on those 2 T-bolts, lock the 2 nuts down, and then just take my transducer cable that we ran through the in-hole wiring port there and plug it into the back of the Fishfinder. And the Fishfinder is now ready to use for the day. And then after we come back in, I can take this entire unit off and take it right in the house to charge the battery. And that's pretty much it. It's incredibly easy to run any kind of wiring, whether you're doing a Fishfinder or a bow mount or a stern mount trolling motor, you're doing lights, maybe you want to do like live scope on this kayak, power pole, maybe you want your battery inside the kayak. You can literally do whatever you want. That's the beauty of this platform, is Old Town has made it incredibly customizable to each specific user, so we can set it up exactly how we want. These through-hole wiring ports make it a breeze to run your wiring inside the hull. It really could not be any easier. If you guys have any questions about this, let me know down below in the comments. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys. Leave me a like if you like the video. It helps YouTube recommend this to a wider audience. So y'all stay on the lookout for all the upcoming content with this new boat. I'm extremely excited to see where this one will take us. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and we'll see you on the next one.